What's up, guys? Nick Bradbury with Community Aquaponics and Local Foods, back again with an update about our aquaponics system. So let's jump into it really quick. So if you guys can see here, we've actually been doing quite a lot of work. So we've drained the aquaponics system, mostly because we were having so many issues with leaks. It is actually quite impressive how many leaks this whole system was getting. So bad that it went through the floor, so this is all new wood. And because of the leaking was getting through the plastic, it was actually making the foundation unstable. So we had to change that. So we tore it out, cut out all of the pre-existing floor, and put in new supports underneath the floorboard. Can't show you that, sadly, but there are 2x4s now running more on this side. Plywood that's stronger than what we had. I think we had like MDF board or press board. That's what we had, but that was part of the problem. Is like when it got wet and soggy, it just like folded. So those two parts. So we just opted to tear it all out and do a replacement on it. We also wanted to add this as a drain. So what's really nifty is we've got these drains here now. So these are cool grates. Let me see if I can get one up. These grates are actually really cool. We got a hold of them. I have no idea what they're originally used for, but now they're going to be the floor drain. And you can see underneath it here, we built, but not finished yet. That's what we're going to be working on this week. Is we've got two little channels here now, basically, that if water does come, it will leak. It'll leak over here, run in here, and then we're going to slope the surface starting at that side, slope it down this way, coming out here, and then we're going to put a hole in this guy and add a T-joint on this. We'll have it all drain into here and have it running out in our pre-drain situation here. So that was a really nice addition to this whole problem. So we're basically installing a better system to manage if there's leaks unexpectedly or anything that might happen, unforeseen consequences of anything leaking. We want to be able to basically evacuate water and get any water that's not in the containers. So that's what's going on here. Very nice addition. I think it looks very professional. So that'll be nice. And then that's pretty much the flooring. So to waterproof it, the next couple steps we're going to do is we're not going to be tearing up any of this vapor barrier, the two layers of vapor barrier. We're going to leave this side completely the way it is. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to put down a new layer that we haven't used before, and that's going to be, we're going to put down pond liner underlay is what it is. It's basically a well, let's go see. So it's basically kind of like a fabric material. So basically it's a fabric material that we're going to put down here. It's kind of got like the feel of wool, but it's not wool. It's basically intended to go under pond liners to help prevent tears and things like that. So we'll put that down basically, and we're going to do it on the lip here, and then we're going to go over one continuous run under the channel, over the little 2x4 that's underneath this guy. So we'll go pond liner, it'll run down through the lip, create the slope here. Go over this one continuous run up over all the way over to the other drain, which I'll show you here in a second. You can kind of see the other drain that's over there. Also a nice drain, which is nice, because this whole surface is actually sloping gently this way, which is good. So one continuous pond liner run, underlay all over this guy, all over into the drain, up onto the wall on the other side. And then we'll do the pond liner again. We'll staple that in so it doesn't move. Make sure the staples aren't poking up to poke through the pond liner. And then we'll do another pond. Then we'll do the pond liner, and then we're gonna caulk and tape it all the seams that join with the vapor barrier. Do a one continuous run, same as the pond liner, all the way through, all under the drains over there onto that side. And then we'll do another layer of the pond liner underlay, that fabric material over the top, just to ensure that we aren't going to cut up the pond liner, or it's going to catch with like this plastic on the pond liner or anything like that. Basically just protecting the pond liner even more from scratching or tearing or anything like that. We really don't want any water to get into the substructure, get it wet, because as it gets wet, it loses its structural stability, and things begin to fall apart, and we don't want any of this collapsing with how much water and weight and fish and all of that stuff that's going to be growing here. So so we're going to make sure it's one continuous run, no cuts or anything, as little seams as possible is the goal, and then all the seams are going to be very thoroughly done. So that'll be the big thing here that we're going to be doing, so that'll be nice. Then a couple additions is we found out so this is the radial flow settler, so that had a spigot like that you'd find outside a normal home underneath as the evacuation, so that we could evacuate it, because you'll periodically need to maintenance this and get the water to come out with all of the solids in it. That was leaking because of the way I did it. It was a really dumb idea, and I fully admit that, and we improved it. I'll show you the improvement. This didn't have a drain on it in any way, shape, or form, so all the water just stayed in here. So what we did was we opted to add a drain to it to drain it if needed in case of leaks or maintenance in the future, but typically we're not going to drain this as part of normal maintenance. But we opted to add one anyways, and then the normal sump tank that's normally here has a drain on it, but we hadn't made a drain system to help drain the water either. So we're going to add a system of draining. We're going to put a hole in this stand. We made these new stands. They're a hexagon, which is really cool. And so they sit a lot flatter now, and it's a lot more sturdy, and they're not going to rock around as much. So we're going to put a hole in there, elbow up, and basically connect to the drain that's in the center of these. And then we'll run it out, the drain out, and we'll run it all and let it all drain, and then again another T-joint connected into this guy and out, instead of pouring them into this drain, because we ideally want to keep the drain as free as possible. This is like last ditch effort whenever possible. We'll also put valves on them so that we can selectively drain them if we want to or not, and then this one's going to actually have another T valve in it to drain the solids into something else and catch them. Haven't gotten that far yet. But yeah, so here's what the drain inside looks. So we opted to use bulkhead fittings. This is one of the bulkhead fittings right here. Zoom in here. So put the bulkhead fitting in instead of doing like a spigot of any kind, and we'll put a valve on the outside. It'll make it a lot easier to get to, instead of having to reach your hand down underneath everything. And then, as you can see, we made sure it was very leak proof. That is the goal of all of this, is very leak proof, adding marine caulk around that at every stage of possible leaks, just to make sure it's snug, very secure. So that's on both of these tanks now. So there's that. We did add the light. You can see the color in here just to improve the lighting. It's not going to intend it to be a grow light in any way, shape, or form, but that's on there. So that's a big thing. We added this heater. It is not a very powerful heater. It can barely keep this space warm enough, but it actually has been doing a good job with everything being very airtight as best as we can to keep this warmer. So it makes it actually really humid in here, so that'll be the next step, is humidity control. And then I think that's pretty much everything we've got going at the moment. That should be our update. As you can see, there's another drain over here. We got it running vertically and instead of horizontally. So that's a nice little add just in case anything does leak. we're catching it, and it will drain again back out into the drainage system so that we can control it. And yeah, that'll be really nice for everybody here, and to help keep things kind of leak free. So yeah, that's kind of like a roundup, and kind of things we've learned is leaks happen a lot more often than you think, and you got to put a lot more effort into making sure that your system doesn't leak. You can't half-ass any of that stuff. You've really got to make sure you're using with the plastic. Like if you're trying to combine a container with a pipe, you really should just be using bulkhead fittings of any kind. Uni-seals totally work. They leak too unless you are very, very good about doing it, but I almost always recommend use some like marine caulk or some aquarium caulk, just any kind of liquid barrier when you put the seals in as well, just to make sure that you've got a good leak stop on that. And then when you do put your pipes in, do more caulk around them. Just you want to make sure you're very leak proof. Otherwise, you know, if you're doing it inside, that's really important. You don't want it leaking anywhere. So that's a big deal. That's one thing we learned. Another thing we learned is make sure you do all your volume calculations and flow calculations correctly. Double check the numbers, triple check the numbers. One of the big problems we had, I'll go into really quick here, is we've had to add, this is actually pond liner. This guy over here is pond liner, this black stuff. And we had to add it, you can see all the white caulking for all the seams and everything. We had to add this to basically extend the height of the container, because these 3 media beds drain too fast and cause the water to overflow into the system. So we had to increase the height, and turns out this height's not even enough yet. So we're actually going to end up having to decrease the height of the water in the bed by altering the siphons and shortening them just a little bit. Totally fine in the end, not a big deal, but it's just a delay and it's annoying kind of problem. So like, make sure you do your calculations. You want to do your calculation for your media bed, how much volume it is. And it's not the volume of the like structural wall, it's the volume of the height. The height calculation is the height of the siphon, and then the width and depth is the structural depth. Same thing with that, but you also have to take into account that you're going to have the rocks in here. So it's a hard calculation to do right off the bat, but it is possible to do them. You want to do an average calculation of the size of these, and then the negative space produced by that. Annoying calculation, but definitely something that I will cover in a later video, because it is incredibly important to do properly. So if you do that, you got to do it for all the beds that are going to be draining in to all the fish tanks, because this is technically connected and you treat it as one fish tank. You'll treat it as one fish tank because it only has one drain out this way. It's entirely possible you can make this bigger and it fix the problem as well. But we don't want to make this bigger. There'll be new holes here, new holes there, new holes here, new holes here. So instead of increasing, that's 2 inch diameter, instead of increasing that to 3, which would increase the flow rate through here, just make sure you do your volume calculation. Because as you can see, if you don't do the volume calculation and the flow rate calculation with how the drainage goes into it, it'll be a problem, because every time it goes through the cycle, if it's constantly overflowing, it's going to overflow every chance it gets that all 3 of those drain at the same time. And I guess I should articulate as well a point I didn't make. They don't drain, the fish tanks will only overflow if all 3 of them drain at the exact same time. They will overflow. So not every cycle will these overflow, because it'll go one, and then it'll go the other, and then the other, or these 2 are going at the same time, totally fine, and then this one goes, or they'll be mismatched. But there is the odd time that if all 3 of them get synchronized, they will drain at the same time, and it will flood the system. Thus why we put the drain in, because it might be possible. But we want to make sure that, you know, all the media beds don't drain into the system at the same time, because you can't stop that from happening unless you added like electronic switches to the drain system. We want to make sure that we just correctly drain, make the capacity, give us a barrier, like a buffer, effectively. Anyways, so that's everything I got for you guys. Thanks for checking in. Leave your comments down below, and I will try to answer them as best as I can. Thanks. Bye.